So we're going to talk about the behavioral side. We're going to start with volume and consistency. And what we're talking about with volume and consistency, remember it's one of the behavioral buckets, there's 3 of them, is how much can I send, how fast can I send it, and how often should I be sending? How much, how fast, how often. And when I say should, this is the operative word right here. So think about it like, I'm a nurse, sorry, I gotta, throw some stuff up there like EKG strips or whatever, but there's like a heart rate, right? Your heartbeat. And this is like your normal volume and consistency, and then once every so often you like send out a big thing maybe, right? So what you're trying to do is create a normal volume and consistency for the domain when you're sending. If you're doing something like barely sending anything most days and then once a month you throw a newsletter out to your whole list, this is a bad idea. That is not a normal volume and consistency. That is abnormal, and once a month you look like a spammer. Okay? So there's 3 aspects to volume and consistency. There's the warm-up aspect, there's a re-engagement aspect, and then there's a recipient tolerance aspect. So when we're talking about how much, how fast, how often, and remember I said how often should I send? Well, how often should I send is going to sometimes come down to what your people can take. And I can't tell you that. Like I can't just say, oh, if you send X amount of email a week and you're 1 every day, 1 every 2 days, whatever, like that's the recipe, yay. If it was that easy, I wouldn't have a job. That's not how it works. And it depends on what niche you're in. Like, and if you're Frank Kern style, it's going to be like multiple emails a day, like offer, deadline, offer, deadline, offer, deadline, deadline, deadline. Yeah, and that was just 1 day, by the way. So, what people can take actually matters. If you're warming something up, we do things different than if we're re-engaging, right? So let's talk about engagement for a second. And I have a whole lesson on warm-up, so we'll go through these kind of like in baby steps, right? Engagement is basically the numbers. How are people picking up what you're putting down? How are they responding to what you're putting out there? Are they opening? Are they clicking? Are they replying? These are all good things. Or are they bouncing, complaining, unsubscribing? And a bunch of other stuff that we don't have stats for, like all those times that we've deleted emails in our account without ever opening them. It counts against us as the sender, but as the sender, we never get a stat on that. We don't have an unopened deletion percentage, right? Nor do we also have how many people have starred your email, marked it as important. Those all count for you. That's awesome. We just don't have a stat for it. We have no idea it's happening, right? And so an email inbox is a lot like a Facebook news feed. I want you to kind of think about this for a second, because all of us are old enough to have known, like when email first came out, and you sat at that box computer that we used to have, whatever, Commodore, I don't know what the heck those things are called. But anyway, you sat at the computer and you're like, I'm going to send an email to my mom. I did that. And my mom was like, what's an email? It was so fun. I remember staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure this kind of crazy stuff out. But the email inbox is not the only place that an email can go anymore. Remember, it was just you would send an email and be like, you've got mail. You remember that? Remember the little ding? Yeah, it was so fun. And it felt so good. They totally trained us like freaking Pavlov's dogs, man. It's prime real estate to get an inbox now. There's, even like Google has divided up the inbox into 5 inboxes. They're all inboxes: promotions, updates, social, forums, and primary. They're all inboxes. If you made it to any of those, you are not in spam, right? So like, hold on to that. Nobody wants to be in those other boxes, but they're all technically inboxes. So if you made it into one of them, congratulations over the spam box. But the inbox is prime real estate. They can't just stuff every email that's sent in front of people. Just like Facebook, you say, oh, I need to spend $1 million on my Facebook ad, and then you get up the next morning and they've spent nothing. And you're like, I'm trying to give you money, Facebook, right? We've all done that. And they're not spending it. Why? Because they just know, apparently, that your crap's not going to work in front of people. And so they just won't spend your money to get it in front of people. So the inbox is prime real estate, much like the Facebook news feed is prime real estate. People only go down the news feed, like 23, 24 posts before something else catches their attention or they don't have time to keep going, right? Same thing with your inbox. Have you ever noticed, like when you get up in the morning and you check your email, you can only go so far. right? Okay, so this whole thing becomes now about strategery. That's what my husband and I call it, strategery, okay? So we want to get to like Boardwalk and Park Place, and we want to put all the hotels and everything on there, and we just want everybody to have to like pass through, and they have to pay us money. So if you want invited to the best room in the house, then you have to show up well. Think of it like a date. I always get interesting comments and snickers when I tell this analogy, so we'll see what happens here. But what is the purpose of a first date? And don't think like your teenage self.
To get a second date.
To get a second date. Thank you, we're all adults here, yeah. Oh boy, I got through that one. So I want you to think about this as a date, right? This is the email recipient, right here. That's Google, Yahoo, Outlook, pretty much the parent, just like we were talking about earlier. And that is you. I'll say it's me. Like, this is us. This is us. We're trying to send our emails, and we're trying to get through this dude right here to get over to that beautiful thing right there, right? And as a parent, when the email is coming, when the guy is rolling up the driveway to pick up your daughter for the date, how many of y'all have kids? A lot of people have kids. I have 4 kids, 3 girls. 2 of them, one's married, one's definitely out of the house. The other one is 18. If a young man pulls up to pick her up for a date, of course, my husband and I would be doing something similar, right? We probably checked him out on social media. We have, listened in on conversations that maybe our daughter didn't know about. We paid attention to what happened at a football game where the cliques are all standing together talking. Like, we're paying attention, right? But when this kid is rolling up the driveway, what are we thinking? What's he driving? How's he driving? Where did he park? How did he park? Who's he with? How's he walking, talking, dressing, smelling? I want to know all this stuff because I've got to decide, my husband would have to decide, is our girl going to go out with this young man? Is it going to be like, Isabella, upstairs, we will handle this, right? Because he just showed up with like a bunch of gang members or something, looking like he rolled out of a ditch. Or did he show up in a suit and tie with flowers for mama? This is how we should be training our sons. My 4th child is a boy. He's 12, and don't think he hasn't heard this story a million times, okay? So how well you show up affects your reputation, because how well people respond affects your reputation, right? So this is reputation gone better, right? Started out bad, low, high, whoops, back down to low, kind of like went all over the place, right? So this is what I mean about your reputation can change in a day. It can change, all right? Here's one gone the other direction. When I get a hold of somebody that shows me we get it all hooked up and we see what their reputation is, I'm like, oh, dang, okay, we have a problem. This is your root domain? Oh, and it's your first and last name.com? Let's talk. Because that's going to be a rough ride, right? Or this one, I would say it's my favorite, but it's really not. It's my least favorite, because this one, a lot of times when this screen pops up, and maybe some of you noticed this when you first saw it, you didn't know what you were looking at, right? Because the blue lines right here, they're like, what am I looking at? And you go, see that blue line? Oh, yeah, that's not good. So now we're going to move on to the markety stuff. All of those things that we do as marketers because ... Like, I do this because, I do that because, I do these things because. And it starts with, who are we when we show up at the door? So think of that young man rolling up the driveway, hopefully not parking in the flower bed. What's your from name? What's your from address? Think about this kind of stuff. What's the subject line? Duh. We all know the subject line is going to play in there somewhere. Every marketer worth their salt is going to probably hone in on subject line and say, oh, can you help me tweak my subject line so I can get better deliverability? Yes. And we're going to go back about 5 steps and work on all this other stuff before we get to your subject line. Okay? And then the first couple lines of copy, or it might be called a preview in the software that you're using. Or it might just be the first couple lines of copy, which end up being the notification on the phone. So like when you pull up your phone and it says that this email is from so-and-so, and you can read a little bit of it before you decide to like click the screen and actually open the email, all of that stuff. Those 4 things alone control the open, assuming we're in front of people. So foundation set, all the technical stuff. Now we're just talking about from name, from address, that's number 2, subject line, and first couple lines of copy. or a preview. That is going to be what controls the open. So all those 4 things control the open, assuming that you're in front of people. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of how I would put this into action. That company that I told you that does the large video productions, when I first started working with them, it was a mess, right? It took me a whole month actually to deal with the technical stuff before I sent a single email, a month. They were using high level. They had SendGrid hooked up to it about 20 times. I don't know what they were doing, frankly. They had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Their domain reputation was not good. Like, we just had to like start all over, okay? And so once I was able to finally send an email, I took 1,333 contacts. They had like 16 or 18,000 at the time, but I took like just a little small sample size because, by the way, didn't have enough data on these people to really know who I was sending to or what. Like, how do I know who I'm sending what to? So I just kind of took a little sample size, and I took a week and I sent 2 emails out, and I'm going to show them to you. The first one, and I'll just read it, but I can't read it on that, holy moly. The first one says, hey, first name, just found out from our executive team they're going to send out a crazy package idea on the same production you and I talked about. It's going to go out in a couple of days to our entire list, and they said they're going to limit it to the first 11 people, though. Notice not even a complete sentence, not correct grammar, right? I could tell you so many things about the psychology in this email. These things tend to go fast. Is this something you'd be interested in discussing before they send that email out? So I had to figure out how I'm going to talk to these people in a way to get them to open. I just needed them to open the email. So the subject line was just checking in. And the first couple lines of copy where I just found out from our executive team they're going to send out a crazy package idea on the same production. And if that's all they read, that's fine. These were people who had been on calls with the salespeople at some point. I didn't know when because they didn't have that data. And I sent this email from the salesperson. The goal here, the only goal that I had with this, these 2 emails that I'm going to show you, is I just wanted to know who should I be when I show up at the door. Who should I be when I show up at the door? Because I'm writing these emails. Should I be the salesperson that they hopefully remember having a conversation with, or maybe they've texted or something? There's a name that's familiar, maybe. Or should I be from the company? So the first email, we got a 68.62% open rate on that one. And I mean, decent clicks and replies. You're going to hear me talk about opens a lot. You're not going to hear me talk about clicks and replies very much. That's going to be backwards from what a lot of you are probably used to and maybe thinking you need to focus on. Okay? And we can talk about why I focus on opens when we get to all the KPIs. But those were the highest click and reply rates that they got on the 2 emails that I sent. You're going to notice a big difference when I show you the second one. The second one was from the company, and it basically said, hey, first name, we know you've been wanting to work with us. You have the thing, you know it converts, you want to put some oomph behind it, get it out to the masses. And if we're being honest, it's time to show your competition a little who's your daddy. They're known for their humor, so I get to be funny. We'd love to work with you too. The video package we discussed already has a proven track record for tons of our other clients. But the most important thing is to actually put them in front of people. We know the last couple of years have been rough, and we want to do something to help. We can't do this for everyone, so don't hate us. But the first 11 people that take us up by the end of March, blah, 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 we're going to throw in, and we threw in 3 months of ad buying on top of it. So there's a lot of psychology in these, but you'll see I used some emojis. I talked more markety, right, the markety stuff. I unveiled a little bit more in the email about what we were going to do for them. I didn't tell them the full offer. I just said we're going to throw in 3 months of ad buying on top of the production we talked about. And that one got a 38.32% open rate. Big difference, like a little more than half, but still like, wow, what happened there? That was from the company versus the salesperson. So I learned really quickly who I should send as. So almost every email I send from this company now goes out from the salesperson, because every lead that comes in gets assigned a sales rep. And the very first email or communications of any kind that they get, actually, because I do their text stuff too, it always introduces the sales rep. It doesn't say, this is such and such company. It says, this is so-and-so from such and such company, right? We're making it personal. Y'all love those recordings you get when you call up the freaking electrical company or whatever and like, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, press 3. and you're just waiting for the press 0 to talk to a real person, and then sometimes they don't say it, so you just press 0 and hope that like maybe that one's going to work, you know. We accidentally made 98.5 off of that. I truly mean that, because I wasn't trying to sell anything. I was literally just talking to a tiny little segment of their list to see who I should be when I show up at the door. I was testing, and it worked, and they went, oh, you just paid for your whole contract, so you could do whatever you want. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to do this some more. This is awesome.